Public spaces used to be the heart of city life and a grand display of power. But in our modern concrete jungles, they've lost a great deal of their appeal. People are flocking to cities today in record numbers, yet we're more isolated from each other than ever before. So, can public spaces reclaim some of what made them once our city's most valued asset? I know skeptics may think that these spaces can only work when governments run them, that private companies will always put profit over public good. But we're seeing more and more privately owned public spaces that benefit everyone while still making great economic sense. And this is happening even in dense urban areas with very little space on the ground. The real question isn't who owns the space. It's whether that space is well designed and truly brings people together in meaningful ways. Hi, I'm Nirmal Kishnani, a sustainability design strategist based in Singapore. Today, I want to talk about public spaces and why they're so critical to vibrant city life. I'll explain what makes them successful, what boxes they need to check at both the building and the city scale. I advise companies and teach this stuff to students every day, so let me break it down for you here. Let's dive in. This video is sponsored by CapitaLand Development. We are social creatures, hardwired to connect with each other. Public spaces have been the heartbeat of human communities since our earliest civilizations. Think of the ancient Greek agora or the Roman forum, where commerce, politics, entertainment, and religion all mixed together as the soul of community life. Throughout history, these spaces emerged through both planning and organic growth. They've always been democracy's stage and culture's canvas where shared identities are forged. I like to think of public spaces as society's front porches, where strangers become neighbors and news travels, ideas spread, and the fabric of community gets woven tighter every day. They also provide essential breathing room in concrete-heavy cities, boosting our physical and mental health. In the 20th century, everything changed. Modernist planning obsessed over delineating zones and moving cars, often splitting communities apart. Car-centered design and suburban sprawl pushed public spaces to the sidelines, and these spaces face even bigger threats today. As cities explode in size, competition for land puts huge pressure on shared spaces. Developers often see public areas as wasted profit rather than community assets. Even existing spaces get strangled by overregulation, privatization, and surveillance, killing the spontaneity that make them come alive in the first place. The problem hits hardest in informal settlements like slums and shanty towns, where people use streets and alleys for social activities, a stark reminder of our need for shared spaces. Take Dharavi in Mumbai, India, or Roshina in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Both have very limited formal communal space, so the pathways between buildings serve as social hubs where people gather. The United Nations recognized the importance of public space in 2015 with Sustainable Development Goal 11, one of 17 global targets, calling for cities that give everyone access to safe, welcoming public areas and green spaces. But let's face it, reality is messy. Even when cities manage growth well, which doesn't happen nearly enough, you've got to contend with different players with conflicting interests, most driven by profit. Plus, there's the land problem. In dense cities, there's just not enough space, and what's left costs a fortune. The big picture is complicated, yes, but here I want to focus on design's role in creating great public spaces despite the odds. What do high-quality public spaces have in common? Well, at least three things: accessibility, usability, and lovability. Let's start with access. If you're designing a development with public space, first ask, how will people get there? Every building sits within an existing network of walkways, bike lanes, roads, and transit. Your building becomes either a popular destination that needs new connections or an obstacle blocking the flow. 2, make it useful. Why would people come? Developments that offer useful amenities are crowd magnets. Make this space attractive and comfortable, say a light-filled atrium or a shaded courtyard, and it becomes twice as compelling. Ask what the neighborhood needs most. Talk to people who actually live there. 3, make it lovable. What will bring people back over and over again? Well, people love places where they feel safe and included, where they might bump into friends, places that reflect their values and identity. So understand the neighborhood's history and culture, then echo that character in your materials, your colors, patterns, or art exhibits. And remember, people are intrinsically drawn to nature. Spaces with a diversity of plants and fauna create instant connection. These fundamentals sound simple, but implementation is tricky. You first need to get clients, investors, or developers on board. What's in it for them? Why would a profit-focused developer in, say, Manhattan or Hong Kong set aside valuable real estate for public space? I asked renowned Danish architect Bjarke Ingels this question in season 4 of Ecogradia. His firm BIG has designed several commercial buildings around the world that place people front and center, so he knows very well the challenge of aligning stakeholder interests.
I think it isn't true that public and private interests are always at odds. Because I think in the case of city development, of course, the people living there, they want a lovely, lively environment. They want life on the street, so it's safe to walk at all hours of the day or the night. They want free space and green space. They want a desirable and attractive neighborhood that's fun and to live in and safe for the people there. And essentially, the private developers, they want the same. They want to elevate the status of the neighborhood so that it is deemed as attractive and desirable. They want they want to attract good footfall for the retail on the ground floor so they can get good occupancy and charge good rents. And of course, they also want the homes to be attractive, so that the rental value and the occupancy remains high, or the sales go well. Right, the more you can elevate the quality and perception of the neighborhood, the more value you are creating for your developer, but also for the future residents, right?
He's right. Vibrant public spaces boost the perceived dollar value of a development. But what about dense areas where there's barely any room on the ground? How do you add public spaces where land parcels are tiny and buildings stretch skywards? Many leading architects believe vertical urbanism is the answer. Stacking public spaces vertically and keeping them connected horizontally to the ground or via mid-height bridges that link building to building. Singapore firm Wohart calls this 3D planning. Now, traditional 2D planning views cities as zones and pathways from above, but 3D planning looks at the city in cross-sections. This isn't a radical idea at all. It's already commonplace in cities like Hong Kong and Tokyo. So let's unpack this concept of vertical urbanism by looking at a prime example in Singapore, CapitaSpring. CapitaSpring is a 51-story integrated mixed-use skyscraper completed in November 2021, which sits on a very tight urban site. With some 93,000 square meters of floor area, about 1,005,000 square feet, it combines office and retail space, serviced residences, and a food center. This isn't just another commercial tower in the financial district. It is a vertical community. CapitaSpring ticks all the boxes that we talked about earlier: accessibility, usefulness, and lovability. You can access it on foot, get to it by car or public transport, but it is especially welcoming to cyclists as the building connects to a 600-meter bike path that loops around the tower perimeter, complete with bike parking and showers for people commuting to work. This track links up with Singapore's downtown cycling network, essentially making the building a key stop in the city's bike transportation system. The public, along with the building occupants, can make use of several communal spaces within the building, like the City Room, an 18-meter tall public alcove located on the ground that regularly hosts community events such as fitness sessions or lunchtime performances. There's also a food center on levels 2 and 3, a popular weekday magnet for visitors from the vicinity. Then, on levels 17 to 20, there is the Green Oasis, a 35-meter tall atrium with amenities like an amphitheater, multifunctional hall, and a garden cafe. This is also a landscape area with over 38,000 plants from 70-plus species. And lastly, there's the roof garden on level 51, perched 280 meters above the ground, the Sky Garden is the tallest publicly accessible observatory in Singapore with 360-degree views of the city. It is also the highest urban farm with over 150 species of fruits, vegetables, and flowers used by restaurants on site. Needless to say, both gardens have been a hit, sought out by anyone looking for a reprieve from the city. CapitaSpring was designed by Bjarke Ingels Group in collaboration with Kalorati Associati. Now, as urban towers go, it may look deceptively conventional at first until you notice how its striped facades cracks open at different levels, revealing these pockets of green space behind it. These visual clues offer passers-by a peek at what's inside. But is this enough to spur their interest and draw them in? How would they know that these hidden spaces are open to the public, designed to be enjoyed by all? I spoke with Giovanni Kosu, who I met on the last episode of Ecogradia. Now, Giovanni is the head of sustainability at CapitaLand Development, the development arm of CapitaLand Group, which owns and operates CapitaSpring, along with CapitaLand Integrated Commercial Trust and Mitsubishi Estate Company Limited. I asked him how access is communicated to outsiders on the ground.
This is done through a multitude of activities that we manage. First of all, we distribute information through physical signages all the way to digital material. And this is done with access, for example, through apps, web pages, websites, social media such as Instagram, and so on and so forth. The people that manage this flow of information is a dedicated team of placemaking and operation that we have not only for CapitaSpring but for many properties that CapitaLand operates. And we have activities that spans from yoga sessions all the way to urban farming. The way in which we have seen the community reacting to these events has been very strong, with the people visiting the space in the order of hundreds per week all the way to thousands.
Creating vibrant public spaces improves the way a development is valued. Now, Bjarke Ingels said as much a bit earlier. But what exactly has been the impact of these public spaces in the way CapitaSpring is perceived?
When you invest in quality public spaces, you definitely increase the long-term value of the properties because people naturally want to be there. This translates, for example, in more visitors that are critical for the success of our project, in higher occupancy rate, all the way to a stronger community presence. And we believe that this is not only driven by the fact that a developer has a specific intent, but also towards policies that in Singapore are very specific. And in the case of CapitaSpring, translated in Sky Gardens, for example, all the way to amalgamation of food centers as part of the design intent. This makes the building, we believe, not only successful in terms of a business objective, but also very important for community outcomes.
Giovanni makes a good point here. Policy can sometimes nudge developers in the right direction. And when several developers carry out small yet smart measures at the building scale, it can gradually reshape an entire city. New York City is a great example. Like Singapore, it uses zoning incentives to encourage public spaces in private developments. Developers earn FAR, or floor area ratio bonuses, that allows them to build taller and larger buildings if and when they include public amenities like plazas or community spaces. This is a win-win proposition. Developers get more leasable space, while the public gets more community space to gather and connect throughout the city. Take the iconic Lever House in Midtown Manhattan. Decades ago, it broke ground by opening its plaza to the public, setting a new city benchmark. Today, buildings like the Bank of America Tower at One Bryant Park follow that lead, offering green plazas and open lobbies that are accessible to all. Now, this has huge community benefits: breathing room in dense neighborhoods, places for social events and gatherings, green havens amid all the glass and concrete, and improved walkability. Today, New York incentives go even further, supporting urban farms, rooftop gardens, and food security in underserved areas. Vacant lots and rooftops are being reimagined as hubs for learning and growing and connecting. And in a city with densities reaching 65,000 people per square kilometer, these spaces matter. New York now has over 590 privately owned public spaces across 380 buildings, ranging from atriums to plazas and pocket parks, covering more than 350,000 square meters, or 3.8 million square feet. That's what smart, community-driven policy can make possible. Policy and profit notwithstanding, public spaces can sometimes fall short simply because communities aren't included in the design process. This is, in my opinion, one of the biggest missed opportunities in all of this. Without local voices, these spaces can feel culturally irrelevant, or worse, exclusionary. But there are inspiring exceptions out there. New York City's High Line came to life thanks to both grassroots efforts and private interest. It's a classic example of public-private partnership with over $100 million raised in private funding. Then there's Pioneer Courthouse Square in Portland, Oregon, which is publicly owned but privately managed. It's become a vibrant civic hub known for its community events and strong local engagement. These projects are proof that private organizations together with public agencies can help shape public spaces that are more inclusive, resilient, and full of life. Collaboration doesn't just improve how spaces function, it builds pride, equity, and a sense of ownership. And that's what turns an atrium, park, or a plaza into an authentic community experience. Designing public spaces is a complex undertaking since so much depends on context. How does this goal play out in, say, informal economies where regulations have less sway, or in rural areas, towns, and villages and beyond? Each of these topics could easily open up a whole new conversation. Now, if that piques your interest, drop a comment. It might just inspire a future episode. And if you've enjoyed today's coverage and would like to see more and support the work we do at Ecogradia, please subscribe to this channel by clicking the red button on this screen. It goes a long way in recommending this content to others who share your interest in the type of resilient architecture we need and must demand. You can also join our community on Instagram and other social media, subscribe to our newsletter at ecogradia.com or via the link in the description pane below. A big thank you to our sponsor who've partnered with us today. CapitaLand Development, or CLD, is the development arm of CapitaLand Group and has a portfolio worth 21.5 billion Singapore dollars as of end 2024. With core markets in Singapore, China, and Vietnam, CLD's capabilities span across various asset classes, including integrated developments and business parks. Strong expertise in master planning and project execution has won numerous accolades. CLD is committed to enriching lives and uplifting communities through sustainable and innovative solutions. 2025, CapitaLand Group celebrates 25 years of excellence in real estate. I'm Nirmal Kishnani. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.